a company called Woomer Art reached out to me and asked me to evaluate their paints. So stick around because that's what I'm doing today.
So Woomer sent me a watercolor travel set and they asked me to review it. So that's what I'm going to review today. So let's take a look. So it's a cute little set with an info booklet. Oh no info booklet, but it has a banner on the top on the packaging. So let's open this. Here we go. And here it is. So it's a small set and a little larger, somewhat larger than a dental floss and thicker than a dental floss. So, but that's what it's meant to be because it's meant to be a travel set, so smaller the better. And it comes with this cup and it has these hooks here, so it tells me that somewhere it fits on the set and it's meant to hold some water. So let's see. So when we open this, there are two mixing trays, and like I said, somewhere this should fit, and we'll figure it out. So I also came up with a scorecard, and here is my scorecard. And I thought, let me zoom out a little bit. It is best to be a little bit more objective when you're reviewing a product. I mean, if someone is placing their confidence in us to review, we want to give us, I want to give my best. But it's been a long while since I have used anything less than professional paints. So when I looked up the pricing for this Woomer travel set, the pricing is quite a bit lower compared to any professional brand paints. So we obviously cannot expect the same kind of performance. I mean, if they do perform that to that level, then that's going to be a big pleasant surprise. But I'm not expecting it to perform any closer to the professional brands like the Daniel Smiths and the Holbeins. So what I did was I found this really old Windsor Newton Cotman set that I had. I mean, I purchased this I don't know how many years ago, and it's been a long while since I used this. And the reason I wanted to compare it to this is because the 5 ml paint cost for the Woomer is approximately same as the Windsor Newton Cotman brand. For those who don't know what the Windsor Newton Cotman brand is, it's the student grade paints. It's one level lower than the professional paints. And I also want to let you know that before I agreed to review this, I asked the company to confirm that no child labor was involved in producing these, and what were the company's efforts to safeguard the environment, and they sent me satisfactory information. They don't have a website, so I had to ask for that information, and they readily provided that. I mean, the reason behind that was I don't want to invest any of my energy if any company or a product does not meet the bare minimum ethical standards. So they gave me information, and they gave me the information readily, and the information was very satisfactory. So I want to share that before we start reviewing this. So let's review these paints. It's just getting my paper and everything ready here on the side. And I want to let you know I'm using Arches cold press paper. This is I wanted to use my good paper and decent brushes. This is the Princeton Heritage brush to give a fair chance to this watercolor set. So the first color here is the yellow light. So as I'm running my brush on the paint, it gives me a feeling of softness, which is always a good sign. I mean, that's what we expect out of the paints. Let me put a dab on the color card. So it seems soft and creamy. So my initial impression is quite positive here. So yellow light. I have a larger brush here, and I like to swatch with a larger brush because I want to evaluate a paint with my natural brush stroke, and that gives me a great idea. That gives me the right idea of how the paint will perform. And I don't like to make square swatches, because the square swatches force you to move your brush not in a natural fashion, and they usually come out quite patchy, and the patchiness is not because of the paint, but it's because of how you're using the brush. So I don't want to do that when I swatch my paints. I like to swatch them in my natural brush strokes. So this is yellow light. Let's take a look. Let me make another leaf here, and let me get some marstone, and so while I was applying, the experience was pleasant, but we'll see how it dries out before we share any kind of opinion here. So I'll go to my next color. So the next color is Oriental Orange. Personally, I like the Oriental Orange. It's a color that's not very typical in the West, but it's very widely used, I believe, not just in China, but it's also used a lot in India. So this is the color here. So trying to get some marstone, and then let's check the diffusion. Nice. The next color is Permanent Red. A dark and a deep red. But there's something about these colors that is, now that I am getting the third paint out, it's a little, although it's soft and creamy, but something is a bit unnatural here, and I can't really tell what. It's like when you're moving your brush against a natural pigment, it gives you a certain feeling, and not all pigments are the same. I mean, if you are moving a brush around on a granulating pigment, you'll get those grains, you'll feel the grains on the when you're mixing it. But I have moved my brush on all three of them, and all of them seem very similar. So that's a little bit odd here. But it is soft and creamy. So let's take a look at Permanent Red. And I'm trying to get a decent marstone here. So my first stroke is just paint, almost no water. So let's take a look here. And my second leaf is a bit dilute. The fourth color is quinacridone rose. So I recently swatched out Daniel Smith's quinacridone line, and like I shared in that video, and I can link it below in the description, is when I read the word quinacridone, what I expect is a deep mass tone and a translucent undertone, translucent reveal once you dilute it. So let's see if that happens here. So this is quite pink, at least in the mass tone. And let's see what happens when we mix in water. So it somewhat does that. So that's a good sign. And let's look at the diffusion. So as I'm releasing the paint in it, it's not traveling much, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. I don't personally expect every pigment to behave in the same fashion. It should not, because underneath it's a totally different pigment, or is a totally different mineral, or if it's a chemically produced, then it's a totally different compound. So all of them are not going to be acting the same. And one complaint that I have here is all of them look very similar. So something here seems to be a little bit unnatural for me, but let's see. I'm still holding my opinion here. The next color is lilac purple. So lilac is supposed to be light, and it is light. And let's take a look what happens when you put a decent amount of water. Yeah, it dilutes evenly. It's more even than I would like, you know, if you know what I mean. If you are a watercolor artist, you know that there is an evenness that you like and there is an evenness that you don't. So that's been my first complaint with this, that it's a little bit too even, too doctored, you know, that's the term here. Like, it seems a little bit more unnatural. So that's lilac, although it's a pretty color. A bit too whitish, you know, it's not light in the sense that it's naturally light. It just seems that it's made to look light. Although what I love about this is there is a beautiful pink undertone, which is pretty. So it has a lilac and then it has a pink undertone, which is a really good surprise. So let's go to the next color here. It's cobalt blue. Cobalt blue. Pretty blue, but it is typical. What you expect as an artist when you take any color, and I'm of the belief that no color is a bad color, you know, each and every color and each and every pigment, when utilized correctly against other pigments or against the right subject, can deliver really beautiful results. But when we look at a natural pigment, it has some natural characteristics to it, and professional paints would sort of communicate that intimate character of the pigment with you, and that's what the artist enjoys. And that's somewhat not happening here for me, although you know it is although they seem like soft, creamy and nice paints, but they don't have sort of a natural characteristic to them. I don't know how to explain this to you. So something in these paints tell me that they are produced in a lab and there is less of the natural pigment in here, although they are giving me some surprises that are pleasant. Like I said, it's this lilac color here. When I put down on paper, it was a deeper purple, and now when it's drying, it's revealing this beautiful pink. So that's kind of nice. But that pink is not a very natural pink. You know, it's a little bit chalky, and it's a little bit you know, creamy in an odd way. So yeah. Apologies, I forgot to put a dab for the veins in the color card, so let me do that. So this is your quinacridone red rose, and then it's the lilac. And here is the cobalt blue. It's always good to have a reference. I think that's a cute design that they have a small dot card here. It's a good reminder to what colors, how this color will reveal on paper. The next color that's in the set is the ultramarine. Ultramarine is a very famous color by Daniel Smith, and there is a big history on ultramarine. I don't think I have read everything, but I've read some of it. So what I expect is a deep blue. So let's see what we get. It is a deep blue, but it's a little bit more reddish compared to the other ultramarines. Actually, no, yeah, it is quite accurately ultramarine. So let's take a look how it diffuses, because one characteristic of ultramarine, especially ultramarine blue from Daniel Smith, is its diffusion. So this one definitely does not diffuse like the Daniel Smith ultramarine. What I'm noticing is there's hardly any diffusion when I drop the color in plain water. It does not move that much, which can be a good thing, which can be a good thing and can be a bad thing depending on what you expect. The next color is phthalocyanine green. So it's phthalo green. I do not know what cyanine means, so let's take a look. So it's closer to a viridian, not exactly viridian, but somewhat viridian. Let's take a look how it diffuses. All of the colors are very similar in their behavior, and that's what I don't like. You know, like I said, as an artist, when I experience natural pigments, each one have their own characteristic, and I expect them to be slightly different. And that difference is the excitement that the artist has with pigment. So this one is far, far, far too monotonous. I think monotonous is the right term. The next color is the Payne's Gray. Payne's Gray, another popular color, And like I said, Windsor Newton's Payne's Gray is very popular. It's gray, all right. Okay, let's take a look. And I just noticed that the cobalt blue missed the camera, so I'm going to swatch out cobalt blue one more time. Here we go. Let me complete my color card here. The ultramarine and the phthalo green. Yeah, this is very close to Viridian. So I gave the swatch card a rest and it has dried out a little bit. A couple of observations here. I'm looking at the blooms, and my natural style is I really love the blooms. I mean, I don't really care much when I leave a bit of water on the paper and it blooms back. And you know, it creates these backgrounds and marks. And I know there are artists who try to control that and let that not happen, but I really enjoy those, and that's just my style. I love those, and I'm not liking how they are blooming. In fact, it's telling me I'm not a good artist at all because this looks actually not nice. So like I've said in my previous videos too, like in watercolor painting, there are 4 actors. You know, the paper does the painting for you, the paint does the painting for you, and the brush does the painting for you. So now I know the contribution of good paints, and you know, it wasn't me all along, it's the paint. And I'm not liking the backgrounds here at all. And that's what I mean by drawing consistency. Now let's take a look how these mix together. So usually when I evaluate candidates for mixing, the first time I lay down the color on the palette, it gives me some characters, and my intuition tells me the 2 colors that would mix very well. If they're 2 transparent, translucent colors, you know you would get these very pretty mixing where both the hues will come together and it'll give you a really nice hue, a new hue. And when you mix an opaque color with a translucent color, you know there is certain kind of, you know, in between translucency that will be achieved. Now with these paints, since I know that all of them are very similar in terms of their behavior, I'm not getting that intuition anymore. So I'm just going to maybe try and mix a red and a yellow and see what kind of orange I get. Because if we have like a small palette like this one, we rely heavily on how they mix on paper. So let's take a look at the permanent rose and see how it mixes with the yellow light. So permanent rose, I'm putting an absolutely saturated brush mark here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a very dilute, not a very dilute, somewhat dilute yellow here, and I'm not going to make it as creamy so that it travels a little bit. So that's my idea here. So I can see that the color, the red, is traveling. Let's see what happens. And the other experiment is going to be, let's put in a plain water, almost plain water, and I'm going to drop some yellow here, and I'm going to drop some red on the top and see what happens there. So red is traveling quite a bit. There could be some gravity to it because my board is tilted a little bit, but you know, I've had other colors that have traveled upwards in spite of the gravity. So yeah, so let me drop in some more yellow, maybe some yellow here, see what happens. So it hasn't dried, but I'm looking at this. Orange is slightly different from this, which is good news, but it's a very even orange. I mean, the gradation is very even, and it's not surprising me. It's the paint as an actor is not giving an exciting performance here. So I mean, it seems kind of weird that I expect the paint to do certain things when I'm the artist, but you know, I think I'm spoiled. So let's try and do something similar with a red and a blue. So let's take let me try with the other red, the quinacridone rose. So let's try the quinacridone, and let's try the cobalt blue with it. Quinacridone. And cobalt blue. Let's see what we get. And then we're also going to try some layering. Let's try and layer the lilac with the oriental orange. Let's see what we get. So I'm going to put some lilac down and I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to come back and layer on some. Let me do two of them. Let me do another lilac layer, and let's try and layer with another color. So let's layer a blue and a red on the lilac and see what happens. So I'm going to take cobalt blue here, and I'm going to let's take a quinacridone red. And let's see how it dries out. So the good news is that when I was moving my brush, it did not seem like that it was moving the pigments of the layer that had been dried out. So, but let's see how it dries out. I'm going to try and layer the yellow with the red. Give that one a shot as well while the lilac is drying. So yellow, I'm going to do two yellow layers, and I'm going to layer it with the red and the blue, so that we can see. Lilac is sort of a difficult color to assess how the colors shine through, so I think yellow is probably a better experiment. So the yellow is almost dry. Let's take a look. I'm going to first layer it with let's layer it with ultramarine. See what kind of a green we get. And let's let's try and layer it with permanent red. Okay, so I took a very deep, very saturated red here. So let's see if the yellow shines through or not. So I'll give it a rest for a little bit, see how it dries out. So as far as the layering is concerned, it does an okay job, I believe. I mean, I can see a green shine through here. I can see somewhat an orange, although I believe the yellow was quite strong, but the red completely overpowered it. I mean, this layering was two saturated layers on one top of each other, and I can tell you if this was a professional brand, I would get a better orange here. And on the lilac too, I mean, the reason I wanted to try on a lilac was its odd behavior here, or non-typical behavior here. And I would say it did a reasonable job as far as the layering is concerned. So this painting has dried, and on the left side you have the Woomer, and on the right side we have the Windsor Newton Cotman. And my initial hunch was right that these two are going to be comparable. But to give you an honest opinion, I had a better experience painting with the Cotman compared to the Woomer, although the results are not too far apart, you know. Well, you know, if I have to be that picky artist, you know, then, you know, I will cry over this, the way the the quinacridone rose and the ultramarine or lilac has mixed here. And I have something similar going on here with the alizarin crimson and the ultramarine. And I like this mixing so much better. I do not like what's going on here. You know, I believe this was the lilac and the quinacridone rose. And I'm not sure if I used a purple here, but I did not get any of this kind of a mess. There's something similar is over here, but here we have sort of a bloom going on. So this is far more acceptable to me than what this is. But my pain point is this and the Viridian. there was something up with the, with the phthalo green. There was something up with the phthalo green. It just dried out completely as soon as I put it on the paper, and it would not allow me to do any kind of mixing. So you can see that this stem with phthalo green is just sticking out. It's just there. It's not mixing with any other colors. When none of that has happened here, most colors have merged into each other, and that's what we want. Generally, as an artist, that's what we expect. But still, it's not all that bad. I mean, you do get your values, and you are somewhat able to control the values. I do like the mixing that's going on here and here, and I believe the green that I achieved with the yellow and the ultramarine is beautiful. And it's the phthalo green that's just not winning my heart here. So so this was the comparison. They are in the same zone, the Woomer and the Windsor Newton Cotman, but I believe the Windsor Newton Cotman has an edge over the Woomer. So while we're using student grade paint, what we don't want is train ourselves into doing brushstrokes that would not yield optimal results when we upgrade ourselves into professional level paints. And sometimes when we are using cheaper paints, we get into the habit of making corrections which would actually be counterproductive when we are using professional level paints. So from that perspective, I felt Cotman was easier, and it still kept me going with my natural habits. And with the Woomer, I was tempted to fix my strokes because it wasn't giving me what I was expecting. So positioning of this brand is budget according to me, and if I have to compare the price per 5 ml paint, it's very comparable to Windsor Newton Cotman. Windsor Newton Cotman 24 set right now is about $41 on Amazon, and so that comes out to somewhat like $1.7 per cake. And if you take the Woomer paint, it is $16 for 9, and it comes out to be something very similar. So they're very comparable in price. So 1.7. And let's take a look at how they fare on the scorecard. And I have visual appeal here, and for me that is purity and vibrancy. It's like the sheer pigment load that I get when I dip my brush into it, and what kind of granulation and staining and evenness it gives on paper, what kind of mass tones and undertones it offers when we paint. So in terms of purity and vibrancy, I didn't think that I was getting a good load of pigments when I dipped my brush. I felt the binders and fillers in the experience, and comparatively I feel that Windsor Newton, if I were to put Windsor Newton at 5, I would put this one at 4. And for granulation, staining, and evenness, that's where a lot of my trouble was. And I would say in that area as well, Windsor Newton had a little bit of edge. If I were to put them at 5, I'd put this one at 3, because most colors were, if I were to look at the swatching here, they are very similar. And I'm not getting any difference in the pigment. I'm not getting granulation in one, and I'm not getting the paper shine through in any of these. So I would give it a 3. Mass tone and undertone, there was, while the quinacridone did give me some translucency, the yellow did not. And I would say the permanent red also was lacking there. So I would just put a 4 there, and I would place maybe Windsor Newton a point higher. Diffusion was another pain point. So for me, that is a 3. Layering was slightly better, so I guess it will be a 5. And I remember that Windsor Newton had something similar, so they are kind of the same. Mixing was very single dimensional. Like when I mixed the yellow and red, the orange was even. However, I was really happy with the leaves here when I mixed the ultramarine and the yellow. So mixed result there. I think it's more like a 4 still. So light fastness per the information on Amazon was decent. So I guess I will put a 5 in there. So drying consistency is where I had some issues. When I was painting, I felt like that they were mixing well, but as the painting matured, it became less appealing to me. So I would give it a 2 there. And for product completeness, I believe the information was quite complete. I was looking at this card here. It gives some pigment information, and I don't know what the stars mean. Perhaps that's light fastness. And then there is a transparency indicator as well. So I think it does a really good job there. So I'm keeping these scores out of 5 and these out of 10 because I want to give a higher weightage to the paint performance and not so much on the product packaging and stuff, because for the artist, I think what matters is how the paint performs, and they quickly forget how well they were packaged or how well the box was designed, so they don't really care much. So this is going to be a 5-point scale, and I think I can give a complete 5 here in the information. Packaging was decent, so I think that's a 4. So as far as the color selection is concerned, I wasn't too happy. I think they could have done slightly better with color selection. So I didn't know where this palette was going. I mean, the colors seem to not mix very well. I think the yellow and the ultramarine did mix to give me some kind of greens, but I'm not sure whether it can give me the range of greens that I would want if I was doing a landscape or a floral. And then lilac, I didn't understand what the point of lilac was. I would rather have a raw umber or a sepia there. And the oriental orange, it seemed a little, although orange is a good addition, it seemed a little bit inky there. I appreciate the 2 roses, 2 reds there. But as an artist doing florals or landscape, I'm not sure if this palette would cut it. I believe taking the lilac out and including the umbers or the raw umber would be a good idea. And the blues, I believe the cobalt wasn't doing anything in terms of mixing, and so was the phthalo green, so they wouldn't go far, and individually they don't get along very well if I were to do a painting. So I think there could be improvements in color selection, especially since this is a travel set. So I would say this was a 2. Although the additions of a cup, I appreciate that, but honestly, the color selection is so key in a travel set that that really overpowers everything. I mean, I would trade off a better color selection than a lower product design. So I would actually give it a 2 here. So just for comparison, if I were evaluating a Daniel Smith or a Holbein, they would easily be on the 9s and the 10s. And I was all along referring the Cotman, and I think they would be a point higher. So just so that you get an idea of where these paint compare for me. And I wanted to give a quick look at this painting, a closer look at this painting, and I'm going to bring it closer to the camera so that you can see the details here. And as it has dried out completely, I believe the Cotman is still doing a better job in mixing on paper than the Woomer. So this has a score of 41. So here are some notes. Woomer compares a bit lower than Windsor Newton if I were to buy a student set. If I had a better selection of colors that would mix better and so that they can give me new colors, it would be awesome. However, I still think it's a good choice if I were to buy some study paints or trial paints. Is still a candidate for purchase.